Hello and welcome to a new series that I'm doing where I'm going to be showing you how did I do it, just like the title says. And in this episode I will show you how I turned the Carpenter from Stardew Valley into an actual Minecraft build. If you haven't seen the series where I built Stardew Valley in Minecraft in survival just yet, then please go ahead and check out the playlist on my channel, or check the link in the video description. In the first episode I created the beach. And in the episodes after that, I started working on the town. In the very last episode, we built the Carpenter. So if you haven't seen that, please go and check it out. Now, at first, we're going to look at the building that we're going to be building today. And that's going to be the Carpenter from Robin, Demetrius, we got Maru, and we also have Sebastian living in this house. Now, at the very start, we can already see that there is a couple of different sections to this building. The first thing that I usually do with a building like this is I go and look at the blocks that I want to use. Often, I try to get a couple of blocks that are close together that I can use for some texturing. Now, as the roof is blue, that is going to be quite the challenge because there aren't that many blue blocks, especially not when we look at stairs. There is no blue stairs in Minecraft. That is, at least for now, because Mojang just announced that later this year we'll be getting our first set of actual blue stairs. And this will be in the form of wool stairs. Now hopefully we can also get these in the terracotta and the concrete form? Maybe, who knows? That would be cool. Since it is a very, very bright blue, and so prismarine, it is a little bit of blue, but it's very, very light, and I don't quite like it. Now, the warp stairs and such are very dark, but it's very much green or cyan. We don't really have any good detail blocks for the roof. Now, we could of course build the roof out of full blocks, but that's just gonna look really clunky and blocky. Especially if we then put a lot of detail in the windows and the doors, the roof is gonna look totally out of place. So I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna be doing about this roof, but for now, let's go ahead and stick with these colors. And we'll see what we can do with it. Then, for the rest of the building, we have a darker wood and we have a bit of a lighter log on the side. So let's see if I can find an appropriate block for both the main color and the accent color. The log that I'm immediately thinking about is the stripped jungle log. As for the detail, then for the darker in between, the first glance I'm thinking dark oak, but that might be too dark. Maybe spruce will be good enough for this. And for the door, I mean, we can then also just go with a spruce door. That fits quite nicely. Now the log, it might need to be a bit brighter, because if I look at the difference between these two, that's not enough. If we look at the difference between that, that is a good enough thing, but I'm not sure if I want to go with dark oak planks. So if we want to go with the spruce planks, then maybe we should grab a different log. Maybe stripped birch log. Maybe those two will work together. Let's go ahead and just put them down. Let's see the different ones, right? We have jungle with dark oak. Of course there's going to be windows and the scale of this thing is not going to be this, but I just want to get an idea of the color. You know, that color is not too bad. I do think there should be a bit of depth with this though, so I'm not sure if we're going to be going with the logs. Maybe we just go with the jungle wood instead. Let's see, what other options do we have. Yeah, I'm not going for oak. It does feel a little bit light brown. The jungle planks does seem more like the tint that we need. So maybe this is what I'm going for. We could, of course, push this forward a little bit to have the door like that, but I don't like that. Alright, let's compare it with the lighter option if we combine the birch and the spruce. Alright, if I look at them compared next to one another, which one speaks to me more? I'm honestly not so sure about the jungle logs. I don't really like the color on them. Specifically don't like the green on it. That feels a bit off. Feels a bit too dirty or something. While this one looks nice and clean. Now if we throw in the blue, let's throw in a couple of these blue blocks. And let's see how that compares. Say this is the roof, right? For now I'm leaning towards the left. Alright, so the next steps are gonna be trying to find some detail blocks. Of course with the spruce we can go with the logs. We have, of course, the planks that we've already got there, but then there is also maybe some brown terracotta. Maybe that's a little too dark. I don't know. It can be nice to have a few blocks that are a little bit darker and a few that are a little bit brighter to be able to play around with some darker spots and some lighter spots on the building. This way you create a little bit of shadow in some places, like underneath the roof. You sometimes use some more darker blocks so you have a bit of shadow. And then in other spots you can create a bit of wear and tear on the building. And so that's usually how I try and play with the details. But that's something that I will only add after I am happy with all of the shaping. But I do want to look at some of the options for detailing while I'm building. Now I also always like oak logs when I'm using spruce. That always fits in nicely. Not sure if I'll like it on the building later on, but that's something we can look into. Now, some things that you can do is, for example, over here, I made myself a little color wheel with several blocks aligned close to other blocks of a similar color or a similar hue. At a glance, you can see what kind of blocks are close to the color. And I am noticing that the blocks that I have here aren't really in the color wheel very much. Another thing you can do is with the mod Axiom, you can look at the colors. So you can literally go ahead and drag a color, right? Like maybe we grab the spruce block and you can see what other blocks are a similar color to it. And so you can see these blocks. Of course, we have the barrels, but of course with the barrel you have the black stripes on it, the jungle logs. There's also the coarse dirt. I mean, that's something we can throw in here as like a little option. So that's something you can do. Then you can also look at, okay, what about lighter blocks? What about darker blocks? Another thing I forgot to mention you can do with Axiom is the gradient helper. It will let you see the blocks in a gradient between a lighter block and a darker block. And it'll show you everything that in between that you can use to create sort of a gradient. Now, of course, it doesn't always work perfectly, and you can refresh some blocks to see what kind of other options you might have. And this way you can go from one block to another. Now, these are somewhat close together. If I were to, for example, grab a much darker block, you can see a bigger contrast here, and you'll see that it'll try and create a gradient. So this can also be really nice to find blocks in a certain palette. Sometimes it'll come up with blocks that you didn't really think about that have a side of a certain color that maybe works out perfectly for your gradient. So that can be a very nice tool to play around with if you're looking for all of the colors. Now let's throw these on the ground here and we can have a look at them. Let's try and arrange them from darker to light. This is definitely darker. Yeah, the coarse dirt is definitely a bit more defined, has a lot more detail and a lot more noise to it. So if we're choosing to use it, I would definitely use it very sparingly. But yeah, here is some of the blocks that we could use. I'm not going to use all of them, but there's definitely some options. Alright, so now that we've decided on the colors of the building, it's time to get an idea of what shape to go for. What I usually try to do is, as you can see here, since most of the buildings in Stardew Valley seem to have this sort of rim around the door, I try to keep this as the main door frame. We have a 3x3 area for the door. Then I look at the windows. In this case, there is even spacing between the windows on either side, and also almost even spacing below and above the window. So then what I try and do is I try to think, okay, how big is that window going to be? If, for example, you were to think about a window which is 2x3, like over here, and this side as well. So now we have windows that are 2x3, right? This could work. However, if we then start thinking about the details that we could add, I'm not sure it's big enough. So I'm definitely going to go at least a little bit bigger here. So let's move this aside a little bit. Now we have a window that's 3x3. The 3x3 feels a little bit too big, so let's squish it in just a little. And now we're back to this. We have 2 on either side instead of 1. And I think this will be a lot better. Next up, I usually try and figure out what the windows are going to look like with all of the details. Now, one thing that jumps out to me is that it has something above that is similar color to the jungle that we've been using. Now, this looks maybe a little bit too simple. So we'll see. Maybe I make that a little bit bigger later. Then it might have something on the side, but as far as I can see, there isn't really a rim around it. We do have something in the middle though, so I could go for a simple split down the middle. Then we won't be able to do anything horizontal unless we do it on one side, but that's gonna look strange. And if we do it on both sides, then we can't connect it at the bottom here. And since I'm going with a double wall design, I usually have glass on the second wall layer, and that way it creates this kind of look, where we have some details in front of the window and then the glass on the second layer. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I don't quite like it yet. One thing I want to change is I want to swap these for stairs and make it maybe a little bit bigger. No, that feels maybe too big. Maybe what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna raise it up by 1. This is a bit high. and I don't like it. No, let's revert that. Sometimes with these kinds of processes, you just have to make the change and see what it looks like in order to really know whether that change is good or not. And sometimes you'll go back and forth between several different designs. Like over here, I swapped it to stairs. If you're still not sure when you've changed something, just leave them like this. Keep both of the options right in front of you, and then later on, you'll start seeing other details in the building. It'll come together more, and maybe then one of the options comes out as the better option in your eyes. So don't be afraid to just have some ugly parts of the building just sitting there and waiting for a moment to make a decision on which one you like more. And sometimes you just need to sleep on it for a night. Now there is also something here in the middle that's going to be a little bit tricky to visualize. It is a big saw for the carpenter, of course, like a big sign. Now I could maybe do that with a sort of a hanging shelf and without the saw on it. Or hanging signs, maybe. Maybe I can do it like that. And then we have chains. Maybe some exposed copper chains instead. That could be it. Sure, I'm just gonna leave that there, let it sit in my mind until I come up with some other ideas, maybe. Of course, these logs, I feel like it needs to be more detailed. I don't know what it is, but something about it doesn't quite work for me. Am I going to make that move out of the building a little bit? This should maybe also be birch instead of jungle, right? Like this might actually be nicer. I might like this already. Yeah, we get a bit of depth in the building, which is actually not so bad. Now I think that the jungle color-wise is just a little bit too close to the spruce, and in the building it very much jumps out at you as a highlight. And so this jungle wood is just not good enough in my opinion. And I think the birch, even though it's a bit lighter, I think it works better in this case. And I do want to change this to where it's possible to have a horizontal one way or another. Now, one thing I could do is make the window just a little bit smaller. Because if we make the window smaller, what you can do with the trapdoors, and this is something I often do, is you have one on the right side of the block pointing to the middle. Then above it, you have one that is flipped to the back side or just to the middle. You can also do like this, just flipped downwards. Then on the other side, you can put it right against it, flip it upwards, and underneath it, you'll put the last one right there. Now you have a nice square. But I don't know, I still feel like it's missing something. So maybe we just put some of this on the side to make it stand out just a little bit more, right? If we compare the left to the right right now, there is a lot more detail on the right one. So now for the next part, we have to do the middle line here, which is where the hanging signs are coming from. Then, of course, right from the middle, we'll have two beams going up. And by the looks of things, there is a big circular window in the middle. However, if I have only 3 blocks in the middle here, then that circle is going to actually hit the beam. So I'm going to put them out 1 block further. So we have a 3x3 for the circular window. I think the 3x3 should be good enough. And then, of course, for the circular building, we can do something like this. We can also make it just slightly more circular by using the trapdoors. There we go. I think that's perfect. That's a beautiful shape. That's also a beautiful size, I think. It's just slightly bigger than the square windows. So yeah, there we go. That is sort of the face of the building that we're probably going to keep. Now let's go ahead and throw in a very basic roof. And this is going to be very ugly, probably. That's my assumption, because usually what I try to do with the roof as well is have a little bit of an overhang on the side here. So that's definitely what I'm going for. There we go. Oh man, I hate that it's just full blocks. I hate that. I want squares. I want stairs. But there are no blue stairs. Oh, it looks horrendous. I don't like it. It looks so bad. Oh, the roof is horrible. I like the colors though. The colors are nice. I just hate that there's no detail in it at all. No detail whatsoever. Why did I have to choose this building for this one with the one color in Minecraft that we do not have blocks for? So yeah, Mojang, please add some blue stairs. Thank you. I ended up experimenting with a couple of different stair types, but I ended up liking the tough the most. With the buildings of Stardew Valley, the sprites are focused on the front of the building. And this is the reason why I first built the front facing of the building. And then, as the second step, I'll try and map out the interior of the build to see where potentially I might add a little bit of extra structure and extra shape to the building as a whole. Now, of course, we don't just have this middle bit as the front face, we also have the garage on the side. So I think that's the next thing we should do. This starts out with a small bit in between, and I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3. 2 seems fine. Now the garage is about this high maybe. And then we have a small bit on the side. How about that? Is that somewhat to scale? Now, when it comes to the garage, I'm thinking of using some trapdoors. That seems like a pretty nice way to do this. How about white from the pillow? How does that look? No, that does not look like a connected texture at all. I don't like it. Now, of course, we could do the spruce trapdoor, but that is a very different color to this. We want a block that has some horizontal stripes. Maybe we use some kind of a log for this. How about maybe oak logs? Yeah, you know what? I think this looks pretty nice. To be fair, if I look at the details, there is a bit of shadow drops on the door, so maybe if I set it back one, you know, that immediately changes things a lot. Now it does look more like a garage door. Alright, so now that we have the front shape of the building, I think it's time that we build the interior. Looking at the interior, we have a couple of rooms here. We of course also have the little cabin building in the back, which I feel is perfect for the research room that we see here on the right, with the research equipment that Demetrius uses and like the little blue chairs and stuff. Like it's a lab, right? I feel like the building in the back is going to be the most perfect building for this. So we'll leave that out of the main house. What leaves then in the main house is a hallway. We have the kitchen on the right. We have the little entry shop area on the left with the carpentry stuff and the little desk, and the shop where you as a player are going to buy a few different things like house upgrades and separate buildings on the farm. And then there is 2 bedrooms, which I think I'm gonna put on the top floor. However, that's gonna be a bit cramped, maybe one at the front, one at the back. And then of course we have a path leading downwards into the basement for Sebastian. And then of course there is also some bits in the garage itself. So the first step of making the interior, or at least planning out the interior, is trying to map out the shape of the walls. The walls around the windows, which extend a little bit further. We can leave a little bit of room here for the entrance to maybe be a little bit bigger and less cramped. And I usually try and keep that 2 wall thickness at the outside as well. And of course, in this case, we even might have to keep it a 3 because of the way that we have done the outside wall for this one. So that means that the interior wall will be around here somewhere. Now for the garage, I mean, I could be a little bit simple and keep the interior walls of the garage somewhere around here. And this could also be the exterior wall for the garage. There's not really going to be any windows on the side here, I think. Maybe I'll do a little window in the back. So this could roughly be the shape of the garage. Now, of course, this is mostly going to be where the bike is. No idea how I'm going to make that, but we'll see. Then here, of course, we have the wall by the window. We can extend that all the way to this. However, I don't think we should share a wall with that, because that's going to be like wood and stone, and this is going to be some other materials entirely. Now that we've done that, we have this sort of interior shape here. However big it's going to be, I'm not sure yet, because let's see what we need to fit in here. We need a hallway at some point, so we could do a hallway on the side here. Right, maybe what we do is we have a little entrance here on the side. Maybe a double opening. Then here we can go down maybe. That goes to the basement. And then this can go up. Right, that goes up to the 2nd floor. Now the only problem here is that we'll be right under the window, so this is going to have to curve around a little bit, right? Otherwise we won't be able to go underneath the roof. This might already be pushing it, so that's usually what I try and think about as well, is where is that roof line gonna be, because I don't necessarily always want to see the roof inside, but this is still possible. Now what I also like to do in this case is use the front area for the desk, for Robin's desk in this case, for the Carpenter shop. And let's see, how will we fit that desk? Since we have the hallway on the right, I feel like maybe we should move the desk to not be on the right side. We could maybe if we make this go underneath the garage instead, then we could push this forward just a little bit, and maybe we can even push it slightly further, like this could be the top. Maybe this is an option. And then we can have Robin's desk over here for the Carpenter shop. This is of course where the shop actually will be, so we have a shop interface and maybe a lectern behind here. Then we can have wood here, we can have the chairs over there, we can have a little plant here. Yeah, we can have the carpet on the floor. I think this is perfect size. Yeah, here we have like another plant. We have the window. I think I'm happy with the shape. We might even pop a window on this side too. And then, since we are going around to the top here, I feel like this could be the way to the kitchen. right? So we have the shop here. We could also do it behind the shop, maybe. It feels like maybe that's more natural. And then we enter the kitchen here. This could be where the wall is, since this is already a decent bit high, right? We could put the kitchen all the way on this side. Maybe we push the wall forward a little bit. I mean, naturally, I want to put the kitchen at the back here, but it is a bit small kitchen. So what I could do is put it on the side, like right here. This is the kitchen interface, the kitchen block. The plant here, maybe. Could even have like the wall curve a little bit so that the wall goes like that with a little bit of a curve around. Oh wait, I'm forgetting something. The kitchen walls are slightly different. Hold up, we move it one block because we need that double wall here so that we can have this be a different texture. That is a fine shape. Yeah, there's this, it's perfect. Yeah, this is the exterior wall. I think this is good. Yeah. Like I always try and look at the front size and how far back the side goes. Make it not too much out of proportions. But with this one, I think it fits perfectly. Of course, right now it's all a lot of dirt. I'm not gonna show you every single little detail of every decision, where every table and chair is gonna go in every room. So what I'm instead going to do is tell you what the next step is going to be. Now that we have the layout, I want to look at the colors of the walls and the floor. And then once I've got that going, I usually try and do this room by room. So I go to one room, change the floors and the walls, and then I try and fill in the little details with a couple of things that come to mind, just to get a feel of if the room size is good and if the colors all match together really nicely. And then I move on to the next room, and I add all the wall textures and the floor textures and all the details. And essentially I go through the entire house in this way. And then I'll see if there is something missing. Maybe there is some extra windows that need to go in some places. Maybe there is a few paintings and stuff that need to go in the walls, because that's some of the things that I like to do at the very last point. So yeah, a lot of the rooms have like a skirting board at the bottom of the wall, and I usually like to use this. We have the actual log at the bottom, and then we have the top with the brown terracotta. And then beyond that is the actual texture of the wall. I skipped ahead a little, as you can see, and we've got most of the room already done. The tough part about this room is that, as you can see in the reference, it is very similar colors for both the floor and the walls, but I think in general it works out pretty well. Now, like I said, I don't want to go into every single detail for every room, so what I'll do is I'll quickly go ahead and go through each room, show you a small few snippets of them with maybe a decision here or there, and then we'll go to some bigger decisions later on, so that you can get a bit of an idea of how each room goes from the concept dirt layout to an actual full room. And then later on we'll get to the side building. So yeah, let's go ahead and go on to the kitchen next. We do seem to have some kind of a pink wall. So that's a first. We're gonna be able to use either the cherry, or maybe we can use this sort of white terracotta. Also like the light gray terracotta. I love that color. This is too busy, I think. Yeah, I think that works perfectly. And then we have this shape, and I do see that that's gonna pop off. That's fine. And then I like to either put a lantern on top of this for some proper light. This is good. Yeah, that corner is still a little bit darker. Then we have the light coming from the window over there, and then the light in here. Yeah, it's always just a little bit of playing around with all of the blocks and just figuring out what wall looks empty and needs maybe a little bit extra. You know, sometimes maybe you put up a shelf on the wall, but I really like how it looks already. So yeah, now it's down to the garage here and the basement and of course the second floor. Now for the garage, I'm using a reference image that is actually from a mod, because as far as I could find, there isn't really an interior for the garage. There is, however, a cutscene with Sebastian where he shows himself working on the bike outside in front of the garage. And so we do have the reference of the bike, but you know, this is just a general garage. And so I think this reference picture actually looks quite nice for a garage, and it will work perfectly here. You may also have noticed that there isn't an actual door. So in the future, I might make it like a little secret to be able to get into the garage, because otherwise the player will never see this. I think mud brick looks nice. I think the red bricks could be cool, but this might be way too busy, right? Compared to this, I feel that the red brick is very busy. So I think I'm gonna go for the mud brick. Then of course the main thing here is the bike. Now, I've never built a bike in Minecraft before, so let's see what we can come up with. So when I build some vehicles, I often use the black wool as the wheels. So let's go ahead and start with that as the base. Right, we have a little bit of space in between. What I then do on the side of the bike here, oftentimes I use buttons to indicate that it's a wheel. Of course, the bike is blue. Once again, we don't have a lot of blue in here. Now, what we're mostly looking for here is a bit of a shape. And then, of course, we have a saddle, which seems to be maybe red. We could do something like with trapdoors, where it's a little bit more thin, right? I mean, it has a shape. It's a shape for sure. How about I move that one bit? Is that a bike? I mean, it sort of looks like a bike. Maybe if we make it very much the warped colors, maybe that's better. Yeah, you have a little bit more shaping options. No, honestly, I'm gonna put these back. I think they just added that extra bit of width to the bike. I feel like it needed that. It needed to be more than just the one wide. You know what? For a first bike, I think this is pretty good. Oh, right. We don't have any lights in here either. Well, that can be easily solved. I can put a lantern right there. That's perfect. Yeah, it doesn't have to be very bright. Just in the back. This feels nice and dark for a garage, right? It's usually not very bright in there. Something that I just felt like it needed was over here. It needs something. I'm just gonna try out what that looks like. I know it's not in the building itself, but I feel like it needs it. Yeah, I don't know. If I look at this, it just looks strange. It looks empty. Now that we've done the garage, I think it's time that we look at the top floor. No idea how I'm gonna fit 2 rooms in here, but let's figure it out. Now, for the upper rooms, there is a few things. I'm gonna keep it fairly short. Mara's room is the first one. For the walls in Mara's place, it is a very starry sky kind of background, very dark. And then for some of the details on the floor, I placed a few robots, and I completely forgot about the existence of copper columns. So I will be redoing these in the future, I think. And then for the main bedroom, it is just a very normal bedroom with not too many special things going on. A bookcase, a bed, a computer. However, I did feel like this place was missing something. So I decided to poke in a big hole into the roof here, because this needed a window, a bigger window. Something about this is bothering me a little bit. I'm gonna try something with the birch slabs to see if this might help. I just feel like it needs a little something, you know, down there. Alright, so now that we have the roof done, I think it's time to go to the basement. So the main things I try to accomplish here with Sebastian's room is that it's very dark. There are several computers. There is some gaming table. And of course I wanted to depict all of this kind of artwork that is also a bit dark and nerdy and maybe a bit of horror or something. That's the kind of vibe that I get with this room. Now for the little building in the back, of course we want the door to be somewhere around here. It feels like it's detached from the other building. Feels like on the left side we have a little bit of space, like 2 blocks maybe. And on the right side, I don't know, maybe 4, maybe 5 or 6. And this is a very flat roof, of course. So we're gonna have the roof. Let's see, let's have a look. It does not have the barrier or the log in the middle, so we're just not gonna do that. It does have a small window above the door by the looks of things. How small can we make it and it still look good? That's always a question, right? So the downside of this window is that it once again does the little square thing, and if we make it a 3x3, we can't do the square. So we either make it a 2x2 and have it slightly off-centered, which is currently my go-to, I think. Alright, now to have a look at the interior. The interior is very straightforward and basic, so we can make this probably pretty quickly. I have used the same kind of flooring in Harvey's clinic, and so I think smooth stone is just a perfect thing here. And then for the bars, we can maybe use some concrete. I remember using warped as a detail on the side for this. Oof, yeah, there's definitely going to be some windows. That's for sure. Alright, so the way we come in, there is going to be a bar here. I'm going to use dirt actually to make this a little bit more clear. And then there is some equipment here on the right, all the way in the corner. And then we have a few stairs, a few slabs. Okay, so now we have some nice smooth bars here. This could be something. I don't know what it is, but it's there now. Whatever that is. Now, whatever research is going on here, we need some windows, right? Alright, that's a lot of windows. But I think that's quite necessary, right? Let's put some end rods like this. Oh, not like that. They look very, I don't know, researchy. I don't know how to explain that. Alright, let's add in a roof. A little cabin in the back for the research. Of course, we're going to have to put an antenna on there. Right, so we do here in the back. Okay, but a fence, I mean... That is very white compared to what it normally would be. But that is kind of how it is, right? And then you have a chain. You know, I think that works. I think that works perfectly. And then we need some kind of a device to... It's sort of a receiver disc for, like, signals and stuff, right? I mean... Sure. This is exactly what that is, right? Perfect, right? That is exactly what that is. I know that we can't see the receiver disc from the front, but you can see it from the back, right? And that makes it look kind of sciencey. I think, whether or not it looks like the exact thing that we want, or that it just depicts it, I feel like we did a good job. Now, of course, we also have a telescope here. That's gonna be even more fun. Maybe like this. This is gonna be a massive telescope. Yeah, that's a big telescope. I mean, to be fair, the telescopes are usually are kind of big. And then this is the hole that you're looking through, and then of course this is like, I don't know, the flap, making tiny details in Minecraft, huh? Yeah, this is the telescope. You're welcome. Right, well there we have it. Robin's house, the carpenter shop, and the little research building. Oh, we might even have to collect this. And somehow it matches up. I did not even like calculate that or anything. It just matches up. Perfect. I'm very happy with that. Now, if Mojang had some blue blocks, we could use these on the right here for the top of the building and make it actually blue. Now there is one final step. Now that we have the shape, the interior sized perfectly, and we have all small details on the outside, there is this one task left. As you can see, the blocks that we decided on earlier were options for detailing the walls. We're gonna try and do that. However, there is also an option to detail the birch a little bit, right, with the birch planks. So that's also something we can do, like a little bit of this. And you'll notice that this helps just make it not all look the same. Yeah, just a little bit of variation, right? That's what we're going for. We don't want it all to look the same. There we go. Now we have a bunch of different variation blocks applied, and it looks much better. I think this is where I'm going to leave it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of an episode. A little bit of a behind the scenes in how I make these kinds of things come to life. And I hope you enjoyed seeing how it was made. Next time I will do the Adventurers Guild. So I hope to see you then. And don't forget to subscribe and like and comment if you enjoyed the episode to let everyone know and help the algorithm. I'll see you in the next one.